So how did the case of Street and Mountford come along?
So, I mean, this is a case now that's just over 40 years old.
Oh, this is a bit like, do you now feel old? This is what the I don't know, the kid from Malcolm in the Middle looks like, or whatever.
And really, what it was about was what is a lease, and
Right.
why was that important? Well, it's about because a lease is a valuable property right, and most legislation that gives tenants rights all centre around having a lease.
So by the time we get to the mid-80s, when the legislation is, there has been some legislation in the 70s, and actually sort of build-up of legislation, most of which is trying to give tenants more security. The person who holds the leasehold interest more protection.
So it's to give the tenant rights against a landlord simply kicking them out.
But the landlords were onto this, weren't they?
So if you were a landlord, you didn't want
A
your
lease.
tenant to have a lease, because if they did, then they would have all sorts of statutory rights that couldn't be contracted out of.
So what did those pesky landlords come up with here?
So the landlords were trying to find a device whereby they could allow a person to occupy a property but not actually have a lease.
Okay.
And they were doing this by having a document that simply was called a licence,
Right.
which was not a proprietary right, that didn't confer any statutory rights, and would allow the landlord to be able, in many respects, to terminate.
And take it
moment's notice and
what
take
he
property
saw as his property back.
Yeah, which wasn't really in the spirit of what the legislations to give tenant security of tenure was about.
So we get to Mr. Street and Mr. Mountford. Is it Mr. Street and Mr. Mountford?
So it's Mr. Street and Miss Mountford.
And Miss Mountford, okay.
So Street decided that he was going to grant Mountford a licence.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, he granted exclusive possession, I think, of a couple of rooms.
In a pub or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, or in a house.
In a house.
Or some sort of residential
Dwelling.
Was charging a rent, and he purported to say that this wasn't, in fact, a lease.
It was a
It
licence.
was a licence. And so it didn't confer any protections.
And this was despite the fact that presumably